from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Good evening, welcome. Great to be here with you. It's the Thursday night edition of our program. If you'd like to give us a call, feel free, 833-482-5337, 8334-VALDEZ. And President Joe El Baboso Biden has finally decided to strike back at Iran. And what does he do? He lets everyone in the media know. He's letting Iran know. He's putting it out there for everyone to know. Hey, we're going to be hitting back against Iran, and we're going to no malarkey. And yeah, you know the thing, man. And he just totally just letting everybody know. There is zero element of surprise. There's zero anything, right? I mean, everything is totally known here. I don't know. I got no words here other than Biden is an absolute disgrace. He's a disaster, and we'll be a lot better off when we don't have him in office anymore. It's crazy to think that you would be attacked by an enemy, and you announce, "Yeah, we're gonna hit him back, and we're gonna let everybody know, hey, we're hitting him back." Why not just come back and report news and say, "Hey, look, we decided to hit somebody, General so and so inside of Iran." Or, I don't know, General so-and-so outside of Iran or in Syria. No. Biden is happy to announce that he has, in fact, decided to actually strike back. And Lloyd Austin is right there with him saying, yeah, listen, we know exactly what's going on, and we're going to let Iran know every step of the way. Listen to this.
The president will not tolerate attacks on American troops, and neither will I. Our teammates were killed by radical militias backed by Iran and operating inside Syria and Iraq. In the aftermath of the vile Hamas terrorist assault on Israel on October 7th, terrorist groups backed by Iran and funded by Iran have tried to create even more turmoil, including the Houthis, attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea. So this is a dangerous moment in the Middle East. We will continue to work to avoid a wider conflict in the region. But we will take all necessary actions to defend the United States, our interests, and our people. And we will respond when we choose, where we choose, and how we choose.
Well, clearly they're doing it at their choosing, and they've decided they're going to let Iran know when they decide to do it, what their choice is, what they're planning on doing, and when they're planning on doing it. It's that simple, right? Because the planned targets have been announced, and they say that they're going to be strikes in Iraq and strikes in Syria in response for killing 3 American soldiers in a drone attack in Jordan. And that happened over the weekend on Sunday. It goes as far, CBS News is reporting this, saying that it's Iranian personnel and facilities that are inside these areas. I mean, how much more of a warning do we need to let people know, hey, by the way, if you have any, bad guys there, move them out of the building. If you have anything valuable there, just take it out. Unreal. Just unreal. Anyway, the CBS News report says that the plans had been approved by Biden in response to the lethal drone strike and other rocket attacks that were targeting U.S. forces in the region. Speaking at the Pentagon, you heard just moments ago Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, saying that America won't tolerate these attacks on troops. and that they're going to continue to avoid a wider conflict in the region, but will take all the necessary action to defend the United States. I mean, how do you do one without the other? How do you avoid the conflict when they're murdering Americans in uniform? I mean, I just don't understand. I really don't. What do they have to do in order to get attacked? Like, what do they have to do in order for Biden to say, that's it, malarkey, you know the thing, man, you know, like that Dana Carvey audio. You know, my dad, he used to, malarkey. You know, I mean, what does it take to get him excited to start, sniffing some kids and yell a little bit and say, hey, that's enough? I don't understand. I really don't. I don't know what it takes to get Biden to the point where he says, hey, no, you're not messing with us anymore. But I can tell you it's very sad. It's very sad. And I'm trying to be understanding. I really, really am. There's a lot that I realize I don't understand. I realize that people like a bad guy. That's why there's so many issues, some of the hot button issues like gun control, abortion, politics in general. These issues all have a bad guy, a built-in bad guy, and sometimes you need this built-in bad guy, and we've got Iran. I think they're a built-in bad guy in this story, but yet nobody's taking action. And I don't know, I just think, when it comes to those issues, people have no problem getting angry and getting riled up. Like imagine going through life thinking that guns are violent. Because day in and day out, you actually lose your friends, your neighbors, your own family members to shootings. Maybe from a stray bullet, maybe from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I empathize with people that have lost a family member because, somebody got shot. I don't agree that we should blame the gun, but I understand why they do. Because it's easy to blame the bad guy. And in a case like that, you make the gun the bad guy. Right? It's so much easier to hate the gun than to hate the corruption or the moral bankruptcy that's rotting somebody's neighborhood, causing people to do these horrific things. I think it probably feels virtuous to people, right, to hate this enemy, right, to say, I lost a family member because they were hit by they were collateral damage in a gang war fight. And so now I'm against gun violence. I'm sure they feel good about that. Not that they lost somebody, but that they're taking this virtuous stand against the enemy that's hurting their community. As if I were to say here, we're going to take a virtuous stand against, the evil people that are in Iraq and Syria that killed our troops. Even if that may not be the right enemy, right? The right enemy might be in Iran. But that's how it is. I mean, it's the same as the people that believe in communist ideology, where they feel oppressed about something all the time. Imagine living life that way. Imagine going through life thinking that you're oppressed because, white people or Republicans or Christians or whatever. That somehow, because of their existence, you are getting the short end of the stick. Imagine if that was all you were ever told. If that's all you've ever known, it would make sense then to hate that group. And again, I'm not condoning it. I don't think it's right. I get it. When people get duped into things. And I don't know, Biden's gotten duped into this here, but going after the enemy, I don't know, close to a week or half a week later, after you're fatally attacked, and then just telling everybody, hey, we're going to be attacking installations in Iraq and Syria. Just, FYI. Absolutely disgraceful. I want to continue this conversation with one of our favorite members of Congress that comes on the program, and we're going to do that straight ahead. Plus your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
The president will not tolerate attacks on American troops, and neither will I. Our teammates were killed by radical militias backed by Iran and operating inside Syria and Iraq. In the aftermath of the vile Hamas terrorist assault on Israel on October 7th, terrorist groups backed by Iran and funded by Iran have tried to create even more turmoil, including the Houthis attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea. So this is a dangerous moment in the Middle East. We will continue to work to avoid a wider conflict in the region, but we will take all necessary actions to defend the United States, our interests, and our people. And we will respond when we choose, where we choose, and how we choose.
All right, America, welcome back. And, of course, you're listening to that cut again. That's a clip of audio of Secretary Lloyd Austin, the Pentagon head, saying that, yes, we are striking back. President Biden has announced that he's striking back against the Iranian-backed rebel groups in Iraq and Syria who are responsible for the murder of 3 American soldiers, and that happened over the weekend. And I want to get some reaction to that because, again, I think it's a little bit unorthodox to make such an announcement before it's even happened. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being cynical. And I want to bring in somebody who's served 2 decades of service in Africa, the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, as a Marine flying helicopters, who was airborne, who was attached to the Army and Foreign Services, and knows exactly what's going on here. Served as a physician on the front lines during COVID in the ER, and serves in Congress now. And I want to welcome back Congressman Rich McCormick, serving Georgia's 6th District. Congressman, welcome.
Good to be talking to you. I'm really pleased to be here tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So again, I got to say, disappointed, not surprised, but maybe a little taken aback. I didn't think that Biden was going to make an announcement saying, hey, by the way, I've decided we're going to strike back at the bad guys. I really thought if we haven't heard from anything in the last few days, that he would come out and just say something like, hey, tomorrow, today, whenever, and say, hey, look, here's our pound of flesh. I authorize this attack, even like Obama did, like Trump did. He died like a dog. I mean, there were so many of these instances in history, right, that were like, memorable, where the president comes out and says, hey, look, I authorized this and we got the bad guys. And here we have Biden coming out saying, hey, we've decided we're going to go after the bad guys. Isn't that letting the bad guys know we're on our way?
It's about as bad a tactic as you can possibly have. As if I didn't miss Reagan enough. I remember when we hit Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, we went across multiple countries, went through multiple airspaces, and we just made it happen. All of a sudden, his son was dead. He almost got killed. He was on the run. And when he finally emerged years later, he was friendly because he knew that if he misbehaved at all, he was going to get crushed. And strength really does result in peace. Peace through strength. We've talked about it for decades. And weakness equates to war. It really does. When you show weakness, countries get invaded. Bad guys misbehave. The fact that he's allowed billions and billions of dollars to be used by the Iranians to fund our enemies. And I'm talking about our enemies all over the world, whether it be in China or Russia or in the Middle East. These guys are everywhere. In Africa, Iran is literally using billions and billions of dollars freed up by the Biden administration to fund war against us and all of our allies. They are evil incarnate, and we are helping them fund this against our own interests. It's horrible.
Congressman, I admire your ability to remain calm in the face of these things. I honestly, I don't know. If I worked in the swamp, they'd probably lock me up because I'd lose my head with a president like Joe Biden. It's again, disappointing. I'm not surprised because I do expect him to mess up, but man, where do we draw the line? How do we make this better? And do you think there's a way to, is there a silver lining to this that I'm missing? Because in my head, and maybe I'm just being jaded about this, I'm thinking we're going to hit an empty factory. We're going to hit a building that hasn't been used in a month. We're going to hit something that's useless as a target and come back with some video with a strike to try to make it look like we've done something when, in fact, we've done nothing.
I don't even understand any reasoning that he's doing right now. I've said since the very beginning, before anything even happened, when they started probing and trying to, and we've had hundreds of attacks on our areas from the Houthis and others. And the fact is, we have some of the best countermeasures in the world. When I was in Afghanistan, man, if you shot a mortar at us, within seconds, we could counterfire against that position. They got so good at it because if we saw where it was launched from, we could destroy that position. So they were doing everything remotely, which made it incredibly inaccurate. Very hard to sneak up on somebody and activate something from something set up like that. So they didn't kill many of us, and it was very inaccurate. The problem is we know where the stuff is coming from. We know who's funding it, and we're not doing anything about it. As soon as you see anything launched from anywhere, we should be destroying that area. We should be destroying where that stuff is made, even if it's in Iran. If you're going to produce, distribute, and encourage other peoples to execute weapons against the United States, wherever that stuff is made should go away, vaporized. You're not going to produce weapons of any destruction level against American troops and then literally distribute them to our enemies and encourage people, matter of fact, fund people to destroy us without serious and significant consequences. And the weakness he has shown, the spinelessness, to cost us American lives, even if we could avoid it by maybe some better countermeasures, but literally it is inexcusable. I just think it shows the wrong kind of policy. I was upset when Barack Obama would kind of kowtow to any of our enemies, but this is the next level stuff. We are failing our troops, the very people that we expect to put their lives on the line. We should give them every advantage possible, and this is the opposite of that.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Folks, we're on with Congressman Rich McCormick representing Georgia's 6th District. And the disappointment, that we're not at any shortage of disappointment for what President Biden's decided to do by telegraphing his response, which in my opinion is not much of a response at all. And I want to continue the conversation on this. I also want to get your reaction to what's been going on the Hill for the last couple of days. I know there was a push towards trying to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, and it seemed like that was, somewhat effective. And then the next thing you know, the big tech CEOs were back in town, kind of repeating a lot of what they repeated the last time they were there. And it seemed like a little bit of a political sleight of hand to me, a little bit of a smokescreen coming out of Washington. And there was, I think, a couple of gloves were landed on these big tech CEOs, and there were some apologies given. But ultimately, I feel like we're not really moving forward, and I'd like your opinion on that when we come back. Folks, again, our guest, Congressman Rich McCormick, medical doctor, MBA, soldier, veteran, congressman, ER doctor. And we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
But I must join in the sadness of this day. The sadness of this day because it is not constitutionally grounded. It is not constitutionally sound. It is not going to save any lives at all. And there is nothing that you have put forward today that evidences in any way a impeachable offense by Secretary Mayorkas, the first immigrant to serve in this position. A dislike of the president's policy is not a basis for impeachment. A basis for impeachment is corruption, abuse of power, betrayal of the nation. And that is, of course, allegations. You, as witnesses, I am sorry to say, Mr. Chairman, have borne no testimony that indicates that Secretary Mayorkas has done any of that.
That is Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Leigh claiming that the impeachment against Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, is unconstitutional. Our guest, Congressman Rich McCormick from Georgia's 6th District. Do you agree with your colleague, Ms. Jackson Leigh?
Heck no. Here's the obvious things that he's done. First of all, they have and I say they because he's an appointee by Biden, who basically does his will, and that doesn't give any excuse. There's plenty of bad people who have done bad things that have followed orders that are unlawful. You still have to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The fact is they've allowed 10 million people to invade the United States since he took his presidency. Now do the math on that. That's over 13 congressional districts worth of people coming in here who cannot have a job, who cannot work, cannot pay taxes. All they do is consume. They literally have to be fed, housed. They have to be given medical care. If they have babies, they become instant anchor babies and citizens. They literally, you'll have to pay for their kids, their education, everything else like that from the time that they're born to the time we decide not to or kick them out. But we're not going to kick those kids out. So you basically have created a problem of monumental implications where every year, if you think about it, every time we have a presidential election, is decided by less than 2%. Not since the Reagan years have we had any double digits. And you're going to basically, just in the last 3 months, over more people than in my congressional district, more people have crossed the border in 3 months than are my entire congressional district. It's all unfunded. When we are in a catastrophic place with debt, with crime, with fentanyl overdoses, the list goes on and on and going. And think about this. These are people who are low education level, low skilled labor, and they are going to be reliant on the government. Those people will vote Democrat. If we were having an honest discussion here, and this is what really upsets me, if the Democrats thought they were coming across the border to vote for Republicans and that their descendants would vote for Republicans, they would be having mass demonstrations all over D.C. and all over the United States talking about the number of people who are dying from fentanyl, the child trafficking, the 85,000 children that have disappeared since they crossed the border. And during record child trafficking era, they'll be talking about all the disease and the hospital overridings and the millions and millions of dollars per hospital we're spending on dialysis and everything else that people come across with these chronic illnesses. They would be screaming about that. But the fact of the matter is they think this gives them an advantage in elections, and they will be the king of the ashes, and that's what they want.
This is so unfortunate, I think, to the American people, to my children, your children, anybody who has children, the future of our children and their opportunities. But we're creating a massive problem. And for Democrats to say that we should not be impeaching Mayorkas, I think is laughable. But moreover, I think impeaching Mayorkas doesn't go far enough. And I guess I have a big question, and maybe in the couple of minutes that we have remaining, you could help me understand it, which is, why go through so many hoops and the rigmarole of trying to make a case about Biden being a bagman or Hunter Biden being the bagman for Joe Biden and the Biden crime family, which I no doubt believe is happening, when we have, I think, everything we need to see right at the border? Why wouldn't we make the border the number one issue to get Biden out of office, for the impeachment inquiry?
You're singing my song. I mean, I've been saying this from the beginning. What is the difference between the laws we had when Barack Obama was president and when now Joe Biden is president? There are no different laws. It's the same summer. I remember hearing Barack Obama get heckled by somebody whose mom had been deported by Barack Obama. And he stopped and he literally addressed the crowd. He said, look, if you guys don't like the law, change the law. But we are a nation of laws. We have a sovereign border. We follow the law. And that's why he was the chief deporter. He deported more people than anybody, more than Trump even. We had a secure southern border. He ran on that. That used to be something that we agreed bipartisan, that having a sovereign border, having a nation full of laws actually mattered. The fact is Joe Biden ignores laws. He is illegally doing this. He should be impeached on that principle alone, and it should lose him the election. But my fear is that he's going to do something, or the Senate compromise, which is not a compromise, by the way. When you're making a law that literally allows more illegal immigration to be legal, that's not a compromise. That's giving ground. We need to stop calling it things that it is not, and we need to call him out. And I think he should be impeached for this.
Well, thank God. Now, Speaker Johnson says that this deal, this compromise deal that you're talking about, is dead on arrival when it comes to the House. I believe him. I'm just wondering, do you think his resolution and the resolution of the Republican Congress, do you think they're going to stand resolute in the face of anything that's not H.R. 2?
I think so. We passed H.R. 2 with a very narrow majority, and it's the right thing. And really, all it does is codify laws we already exist. You know, this whole Remain in Mexico thing has existed all along. You're not allowed to claim asylum by going through 3 other countries to get to the United States. That's not how it works. Once you get out of your country, the first country you come to, which you're not in dire straits, that's where you're supposed to stay. That's why Remain in Mexico is the law. We don't have to make new laws. It exists already, but it codifies that. And this is a sad little secret about Congress. We spend probably more than half our time actually trying to enforce laws that already exist. Like, for example, not allowing the president to give away $500 billion in student loans, many of them to millionaires and even billionaires. We spend half our time trying to fight bureaucracies that are making laws that they can't legally do. We rely on the Supreme Court. Thank God that President Trump gave us a great Supreme Court that we're actually beating these guys, showing them how they're breaking the law. But why do we have to spend our entire time in Congress fighting something that's already illegal? This is just so frustrating. We're not getting a lot done because of that. And it's slowing us down on things like the budget, which really matter.
Congressman McCormick, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I'd like you to let the audience know how they can keep up to speed with everything you're doing, how they can follow you, and where they could go to learn more.
richmccormick.us. It's a great website. You see a lot of fun things out there right now. We're trying to keep it lively. We're fighting the good fight, and anybody can reach out to us at any time. We're always trying to educate the public, and we want to grow the party the right way. I always keep on saying, instead of trying to win an argument, win a friend, we want people in the church, so to speak. Let's make them conservatives and show them that we actually care about people. We don't want people out of poverty, and what we're doing is best for them. We want people to be enriched by the opportunities that exist only here in America.
Amen to that. Well, thank you for your service to the Marine Corps. Thanks to your service in Congress and, of course, as a physician on the front lines in the ER. We appreciate it, sir.
Always a pleasure, my friend. God bless you and your family. Semper Fidelis.
Amen. You too. All right, folks, we're coming right back. We continue the discussion. Was Biden feckless? Was he retarded? I shouldn't say that, right? I get in trouble for that. But did he make the right move in announcing this attack on Syria? And your thoughts on the border and more when we return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. So America's in dire straits. We've got Biden announcing what's going on, what kind of moves he's making when he's retaliating against Iran. Then, of course, we've got Congress that is just, the members of Congress and on the Republican side are firm. And they're saying, no, we are not going to approve this crazy measure where they're saying we can allow up to 5,000 people a day when Obama's DHS secretary, Jay Johnson, said that having more than 500 people a day would be absolutely disastrous for our nation. And we've had a consistent flow of people of that magnitude for going on 3 years, or 4 years, rather. So how about that, right? So we have that. We also have we have no idea what these targets are going to be. I hope that Joe Biden shuts me up tomorrow and comes to the microphone and says something like, you know, folks, you know the thing, man, and we got this general and we killed that general and we got their mama too. Yeah, but I don't think he's going to. I think ultimately he's just going to say nothing, and KJP will come out and say President Biden's very pleased with the drone strikes that we conducted over the last 48 hours to retaliate against whatever, and we blew up key weapons-making facilities. And meanwhile, these are probably empty warehouses, and that's really all they've ever been. So I'd like your thoughts on it. Let's hit the phones, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's go to Jim calling in from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, listening on KDKA, America's oldest radio station. Got to love that. Jim, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
How you doing, Rich? Hey, 50 years ago, I was in college, 1974. I was getting ready to develop a degree in political science. I had a professor, Richard Cottom. He was a PhD. Well, he didn't tell us the time, but we found out he worked on the CIA uncover under Tehran. So, let me just tell you a little bit, people listening. Yeah, he did. He never said he did, but when Jimmy Carter was basically in 1979, when he was helpless, you Google, you'll see Hamilton Jordan called Dr. Cottom in. He said, Dr. Cottom, what can we do? And he said, sorry, Jimmy, too late. That's a true story. Now, let's just talk what they're doing. Iran has 4 oil refineries, 4, okay? And if you don't have a refinery, you can't refine the gas. Now, if you wanted to really hit them when it hurts, you take a refinery out. You take a refinery out, they're in trouble. You don't bomb some – this is a joke. This reminds me of 1998 when Bill Clinton was facing impeachment, I think, with Monica Lewinsky, and he bombed an old defunct pharmaceutical company. In 1998. Right. It was 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning. There was so they're not doing anything. This is for show. Right.
It's pure theater. And this is my concern, that we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to take out some sort of facility and claim something that isn't, just like we did when we went after the guys that set off the bomb that killed the 13 service members in Afghanistan in that disastrous withdrawal. And turned out the people that we got in that strike weren't even the right people. And the whole thing was wrong. So I don't trust Joe El Baboso Biden, as I like to call him. I really don't have the faith in him to pull off this kind of operation. I wish that he would at least say we're going to take out their refineries, because at least those aren't moving, and we know if we got them or not. But we're not even hitting Iran inside Iran. We're going to hit Iranian facilities that are in Iraq and Syria. And that part, to me, it tells me everything I need to know. We're not going to do much. It's going to be a little bit of a show. Maybe there'll be a little video that they could run on CNN or MSNBC and take a victory lap for now and make him feel better, make him feel like he can sleep at night. But it doesn't do anything for me. I don't know if it does anything for you, Jim, but I don't think it's doing anything for the memory and the legacy of the 3 brave souls that were lost at the hands of this drone strike on Sunday.
We lost all these people in Iraq. You know why? Because basically Iraq and Iran are now together, because basically Saddam Hussein was a Sunni. Now the Shiites are in them. The Shiites are aligned with Iran, so Iran has more fodder in there. And that's why they made a joke about Iran. I think yesterday I heard you say something about it.
Yeah, they said we're not going to hit you guys anymore. We don't embarrass Baghdad.
Sad. All the U.S. servicemen died in vain because Obama took the top part of of Iraq. I had some friends of mine and 4 brothers that were stationed in multiple tours back at that time. They basically took the top part of Iran and they took the surveillance out. So there was a direct route from there all the way to Syria. You look at the map, direct route. Mm-hmm. Direct route.
Jim, I appreciate your thoughts. I got to take a pause right here, but very insightful. Thank you for your thoughts, and I agree with you. Take out the refineries, and I say take out a few generals too. You got to really kneecap them, and I don't know that we're doing that, but I guess we'll wait and see, and time will tell. Big shout out to everybody listening in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. The rest of your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And we're discussing whether Biden did the right thing or the wrong thing by announcing that he is going to strike back at Iran by hitting Iranian facilities that are inside of Iraq and inside of Syria. Now, my criticism of this is that Biden should never have announced that he was going to do this. He should just do it and then announce what he's done. And I feel that by announcing it, he's allowing the Iranians to move whatever assets they have, bomb-making facilities, whatever he's planning on hitting. Mind you, we've been hit over 150 times. 3 died over the weekend. 25 more were injured or more. And we've got 2 Navy SEALs that died a week before that. And close to 160 soldiers that are now dealing with traumatic brain injuries from rocket attacks. We're under attack. Hundreds of attacks, or at least 150 some odd attacks. And Biden doesn't do anything. Now he finally decides, okay, we're gonna strike back, and he does a press release and he lets people know, and he does a press conference, and Lloyd Austin says, hey, we're gonna hit him back. Instead of saying, hey, we hit him back. Barack Obama went after the bad guys, maybe not as I felt he should have, but he came back and he said, we got Osama bin Laden. Trump said, hey, we got al-Baghdadi. He died like a dog. Joe Biden says, hey, we're going to go get the bad guys. It's unacceptable to me. Let's go to the phones. 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Steve in Atlanta on WGKA. Go right ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Mr. Valdez.
Of course.
Let me just say, when we hit the guy, the bomb maker, he was in Iraq. He wasn't not allowed to be in Iraq, and so we got him while he was in Iraq. Yeah, it pissed him off, but we didn't go and bomb Iran. Let's understand what Iran is, okay? Iran is a country of 90 million people, almost a third of the entire United States. They have a lot of power. I think in World War I, World War II, I think it was only like 30 million people who almost took over the entire world because they were all. So let's not be a warmonger like I don't know, somebody running for president, a female. Let's just you almost sound like you work for the industrial military complex.
I wish I did, and I wish I could. Now, I haven't heard Nikki Haley calling for any military action against Iran, but I'll be the first in line to say, yeah, I think that we should engage with Iran, and we should engage with Iran very quickly, well before they enrich any more yellow cake uranium and become a nuclear power, where then they're a bigger threat to not only the region, but to the rest of the world. And I think the United States has a duty to do that. I don't understand any position or anyone that comes from a position that says, okay, you can murder American soldiers, you can do whatever you want to us, and because Iran has 90 million people, we're going to do nothing to you. That, sir, doesn't fly in my book. Thank you for your call, Steve. Folks, we're coming right back. Hour number 2 coming right up. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Happy to be here with you this Thursday evening. If you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. We still have this House bill that is determining whether illegal aliens who have committed DWIs will get through the Senate. It got through the House with 59 Democrats voting in favor for it. So we'll see how that goes. Then we've got Cori Bush. Yesterday I mentioned that she was under investigation for her misuse. She's paid her husband, right? Back then he was her fiance. Now he's her husband. And she hired him, and I think since she's taken office in 2018, she's spent nearly $700,000 on security. All of that after she said we should be defunding the police. And that comes as no surprise. We'll get into that a little bit later. The families of 3 U.S. service members killed in Jordan over the weekend still haven't heard from President Biden. And that's sad. Definitely sad. They finally heard from President Biden. And I think, what took so long is really the question. It's a damn shame that that's even happened. But that's where we are. And again, that's a development as of late, that they finally heard from the president after this. And I look at that and I think, this is a horrible, horrible thing. And we will play you the excerpt of the phone call a little bit later from President Biden to the family, to one of the family members. But the whole thing is really just, it's ugly. It's an ugly situation. And it's National School Choice Week, right? And I always support school choice. I, early in my career, was very active with supporting charter school movements, and I've always supported homeschool, and I wasn't always able to pursue that option. I think a lot of people think they can't and don't realize, what it takes. But I think some people are just like, I can't do that. I've got this or I've got that. But I think there's a lot more than meets the eye when we talk about homeschool, and it's important. I think once you've taken over, if you want to affect a people group, right? I think going after their children is the easiest way to do it. And the easiest way to do that is to take over a school and take over what's being taught. And teachers' unions have done an excellent job of that. We see that time and again with the huge push towards the hypersexualization of our children and gender theory, queer theory, and all other types of new types of thinking that are being taught in the classroom and at younger and younger ages. And I want to talk with Robert Bortins. He's the CEO of Classical Conversations, and they support homeschooling. They're in 50 states and in 30 foreign countries. And I'd like to welcome him to the show. Robert Bortins, welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about what's happening with public schools. I think people are finally getting the memo that public schools aren't quite what they used to be, and some parents are pulling their kids out, and we're seeing enrollment drop. And I think that's a new trend that's really kind of taken off since COVID, because people just realize, oh my gosh, this is what's going on in the public school classroom. But we're a couple of years removed from COVID, so tell us what's going on.
Yeah, parents are realizing that the schools are indoctrinating their kids and not educating them. The federal government released a study that showed 40% of kids at public schools are being bullied, 30% are reporting being sexually harassed, and only 30% can read at grade level. And so Ronald Reagan once said that if a foreign country put our school system in place, we'd consider that an act of war. And that was in the 80s, before all these parents started realizing what's going on. And so, I think homeschooling's up over 50% since COVID. Private schools, I think, are up over 10% since COVID, and public school enrollment has declined 4% since COVID. And so more and more parents are looking for their options, making sacrifices, seeing that maybe chasing the dollar that's, continually inflating isn't the best path forward. And really millions of families have chosen to privately educate their kids and to get their kids out of the government system any way they can. And so it's really been really cool to see, and especially the rise of classical education over the last couple of years as people have realized that maybe reading the best materials man has produced over history might be a good way to produce citizens that love their neighbors and love their country.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is that there are some activists out there now saying that the voucher program, when people can use public funds to either send their kid to the school of their choice, whether it be a religious school, a private school, or a public school, that this would be the equalizer for a lot of districts and a lot of parents, where it'll be a lot more difficult for the government to crack down on private schools because people would have the option to put their kid in private school. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, we're very skeptical that vouchers are the way forward because with government funding comes government control. It's happened throughout history, and we've seen that as government funded more and more of college costs, that college costs have continued to skyrocket and the quality has gone down. So we'd really like to see a system where people can keep their own money, where businesses and individuals and civics groups are incentivized to create scholarships and maybe ways to reduce their own taxes. But we already have school choice in this country. But when you have a single payer paying for everybody's choice, you don't really have any choice at all. And so we're real skeptical that these, school vouchers are going to really, not bust the budget of these states, and that it could create dependency on the state even further in the future. So we're 100% for school choice, but 100% against government paying for that.
Well, let's walk down that road a little bit. So if you've got, 1,000 kids going to school, and let's say now there's no vouchers, but you do get vouchers, and now those same 1,000 kids are going to school, and it's the same cost to educate those kids, but now instead of sending 1,000 kids to public school, they have a choice of whether they go to a private school or not. How would that affect the budget if it's the same amount of kids going to school and the same amount of money being spent?
Yeah, so the universal school choice is giving money to people who are already privately educating their kids, to millionaires and billionaires. And so it's not, there's 1,000 kids being educated, but right now 100 of them are being privately funded. And so when you increase those being funded by 10%, that's going to increase your school costs by 10%. And since school costs are about 50% of most state budgets, you're talking about, a 10% increase there over a period of time. And so, I understand it's demand supply economics, and that's what they did through COVID by printing all these trillions of dollars. And we see that we've gotten massive inflation because of it. And if a private school only has enough space to educate 100 kids, and now these 100 kids are getting $7,000 a year from the government to pay for it, and they're paying $7,000 a year out of their own pocket, the private school is going to naturally increase costs to $14,000 over a period of years. And because they know that the families can already afford $7,000 and that they're getting a $7,000 subsidy. And we've already seen this play out in medical costs, in healthcare, anything that the government has subsidized. Inflation has gone up and quality has gone down. And so we'd like to see things like people being able to keep their own money, reducing taxes, reducing regulatory burdens for starting schools, for starting private schools, and for individuals who want to donate to private entities, be able to reduce their tax bill so that we are privately funding scholarships and privately funding these institutions because we want to build them on solid ground. And you can just see that whenever you build an entity in a structure on government funding, then you're constantly going back to the government and begging them like a slave for more funds or for this or that. And we want to be a free people. We want to have education that creates free people. And if it's being funded through theft, through stealing money from your neighbors, Just as a Christian, I don't think God's going to honor that, and He hasn't honored our public school system. So it really comes down to the financing of education. That's why our public schools are failing, because they're not being financed by the end user. They're being financed by forcing widows and grandmas to pay property taxes to educate young kids instead of
I don't
coming together as a
disagree
community.
that the school funding formula is a challenging one, and puts a lot of burden on people who don't even have kids in a school district. I'm just wondering, I would love to keep more of my money and have been able to educate my kids privately. I don't know what that would look like. I know you're saying some tax breaks and whatnot, but is there a specific package of laws that you guys are promoting or working with in any state that would actually pave a path to getting there?
I know not one that we're specifically working on, but in South Carolina, there's one where you can keep up to $3,000 per student of your tax dollars if you're not enrolled in public school. I think Oklahoma had one where you'd get to keep $1,000 of your own money. So, not as much as these vouchers, but these vouchers are really breaking these state budgets. And a lot of these vouchers were funded by COVID dollars that the federal government gave these states. Part of the reason we're $34 trillion in debt. So it's just not a sustainable system. And so instead of, redistributing wealth and creating dependency for our young people on government funding, we should continue to help people get out of this system through private means.
And if people want to learn more about the work you're doing here, how do they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, The Robert B. Show, and on Instagram, and you can go to classicalconversations.com for our company, and we're on all the social medias except for TikTok. You're not going to find us there.
Got it. Well, thank you, Robert Bortins. We appreciate it. Folks, check them out and see what they're doing with respect to promoting private education. And I thank you for being with us. Folks, straight ahead, we continue with your phone calls and more.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back, and we continue with our discussion on public education. And I want to go to the phones. If you want to join the conversation, you know the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And let's go to Cumberland, Maryland, WCBC, and check in with Frank. Hey, Frank, you're on with Rich Valdez. Go right ahead.
Rich, you grew up in New York City, so you must have had some experience with the New York public schools. There's a very interesting history there. I know in the 60s, I guess before your time, they had Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and all kinds of controversy. And City College used to be known as the poor man's Harvard. And then they had open enrollment, and it was some people said it was destroyed. What happened, and what was your experience with public education in New York City?
Sure. Well, I proudly oftentimes tell people that I am a product of New York City public schools. I went to public school 197 for grade school, and then intermediate school 240, IS 240, the Andreas Huddy School on Nostrand Avenue, both in Brooklyn. And then around the end of sixth grade, I moved to Jersey. And I could tell you my experience was that the education that I received in Brooklyn was way better. My appreciation for the Constitution came from my fifth grade teacher, Gerald Banker, who he painstakingly walked us through reading the entire Constitution several times, making sure that we understood not only what was in it and, of course, the spirit of it, but a lot of why we went the way we did. And City College was always kind of highly regarded. So was Brooklyn College. And I didn't go to college in the CUNY system. I went to New York University, so I couldn't tell you anything about the CUNY schools, but I know they were always really good. You got the Zicklin School of Business in Baruch College, was one of the top 10 in the country at the time that I went back in the early 2000s. So from what I've seen and what I experienced, it was always really, really positive. I enjoyed my public school education. I don't know that it's the way it is now. I mean, something I found very interesting was that all of my teachers were very old. All of the administrators were very old. And around the time that I was moving was around the time that many of them were retiring and bringing in new teachers. And I think it was that new guard that came in that may have, sipped the leftist Kool-Aid and started going to the other side. Because I can tell you, people that I know that stayed in Brooklyn, didn't move out of Brooklyn and stayed there, don't have the same views on America that I do, don't have the same views on everything. But with respect to, again, my primary education there, very interesting. Something that really shaped me and formed me was kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all those. It was extremely diverse. And Brooklyn as a whole is a very diverse neighborhood. But I remember, when it was that time to take a nap, nap time or whatever, and you'd pull out your little plastic mat and, lay down. Nobody ever slept, but you had to, lay down for 10 minutes or whatever it was. Next to me was a Jewish kid, Mark Schulman, nice kid. On the other side of me was a Haitian kid, Stan Hope Ellis. To where my head was, above me, was Osama Marrero. Dominican, like Dominican Republic, and Egyptian, right? What a mix. Incredibly diverse from kindergarten was my experience. So I grew up in an area where there was just a lot of diversity. Lived right outside of Flatbush, so lots of Jewish kids, Orthodox, Hasidic Jewish kids, as well as a black neighborhood that was right next to us, and a lot of buildings with lots of Albanians, and a little bit further down the road, lots of Russians and Ukrainians. So very, very diverse, my upbringing. And when I moved to Jersey, I can tell you it was very different, right? There were neighborhoods that had, in fact, there's still neighborhoods, right? If you go today to the town of West New York, New Jersey, they've developed it because it has a piece of shoreline on the Hudson River there. But I'll tell you this, by and large, I bet you that town is probably 70% Hispanic, if not 80. And that wasn't something you saw in New York. It was a lot more ethnically diverse, a lot more different people from different places. Places, Newark, New Jersey, not as diverse as you would think. So interesting. Frank, thanks for your call. More to come straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So if anybody's been scrolling social media, there is a check-in, a mental health check-in from none other than Elmo. Elmo was on Twitter. Elmo is, of course, the little red monster. He's a puppet from Sesame Street. And he tweeted out, Elmo's just checking in. How's everybody doing? And this check-in from Elmo got a lot of interesting reaction because it underscored the mental health crisis that some are calling it in the United States. Now, I don't know if we have a mental health crisis or not. I think most of my life, I've always referred to most of the people around me as being nuts. So I don't know if it's a crisis or if that's the norm for me. But very interesting that Axios, the reporter there, picked up on this. And they're pointing out that the reason this matters is because the responses to Elmo's post were estimated to be seen by 140 million users. And they're saying this underscores a growing concern for mental health in the United States. and they're saying there's a national spike in anxiety and depression. Now, that I totally believe. I don't know if it would be called a crisis. Maybe it is. But I know that's happening because we've discussed that straight through COVID, and it didn't go away for a lot of people, with young people driving most of the rise in mental health spending in recent years. Now, spending in the country on mental health with private insurance has surged during the pandemic, and they're finding, the Gallup poll has found that in 2023, 23% of U.S. adults visit a mental health professional as compared to 13% back in 2004. So people are either getting mentally healthier and seeing a mental health professional, maybe going to therapy. I'm of the opinion, I think everybody should go to therapy. Why wouldn't you have, it's kind of like having your own senior advisor that is, trained in the mental health department that can help you with things. And the more I interview different, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists on this program, the more I learn that seems to be the norm from their perspective as well, is that most people should be regularly going to some sort of mental health provider. And it's kind of like the revelation I had when I started going to the chiropractor. I remember going to the chiropractor, and the first time I went, it was part of I had gotten into a car accident, and they said, oh, you got to go to therapy and do this stuff. I was like 19. And I did what they told me, and I went as often as they said, and then I got tired of it, and I stopped going. But my point was, I did what I was told, and I was like, yeah, you go, whatever. But then as, time went on, I started going on my own, and I realized I like going to the chiropractor, and life is better when you've gotten an adjustment. And the adjustment only lasts, but so long. So it's not, looking at it as, oh, you can't just go to the chiropractor once. Well, you shouldn't want to go once. It's like taking a shower. I think you want to go every day if you can. And I tend to look at all practitioners like that. If I could go to my medical doctor every day as part of getting up in the morning, hey, am I good? All right, thanks. Maybe that's a little overkill, but I wouldn't do it. I would do it. I think the reason we don't do it is because it's so hard to do it, right? You got to make an appointment. You got to get out of your way, take time off from work, etc. So anyway, Elmo checked in with everybody, and he's finding that half of U.S. adults are reporting that they feel lonely. The Surgeon General of the United States recently said that it is an epidemic of loneliness that we have in our country. And I think all of this stemmed from the bad judgment that they used when they said we should all lock ourselves in our homes and not see people and allow our loved ones to die on an iPad. Now, again, we can't relitigate the past, right? We have to move forward. But that was what happened, and that has weighed upon people. And I think people are still dealing with the effects of that. But what do I know? I want to bring in one of the pros that knows exactly what's going on. Leigh Richardson is a licensed professional counselor, psychotherapist, and the founder of the Brain Performance Center. She's also the author of Turn Your Brain On to Get Your Game On, the how, what, why to peak performance. Leigh Richardson, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I want to get your take. What do you think about Elmo's check-in and the response to that?
I love Elmo's check-in. I advise my clients on a regular basis, check in with yourself, and I do it. Hey, Leigh, how's your day going? What do you need today, Leigh? And it's just once you stop and you take the time to ask yourself that question, you realize, oh, I need some social contact. Or, oh, my gosh, I need to get up and move. I need some physical exercise. And when Elmo asked that question, Elmo's been with us. Sesame Street's been around for 50 years. Some of us grew up with Elmo, or we grew up with Elmo through our children. And Elmo's non-judgmental. He's welcoming. He's nurturing. And I think many of us have been waiting for someone to ask the question, hey, how are you doing?
Now, are you surprised by the results of people showing that, there's a spike in anxiety, a spike in depression?
Not at all. I have just completed my PhD, and so I've been following research for the last couple of years and reading a lot of it. And the numbers show that it's on the increase. I mean, before, and this is amazing to me, before we went through COVID, before we went through the pandemic, 1 out of 4 Americans was suffering from either a mental health disorder or substance abuse. And the first year after COVID, the research showed anxiety, depression went up 25%, and it has not come down. I believe that there's a stacking effect. You know, we all went through that period of time where we lost our normal. I did when the governor of the state of Texas said, shut your business. I did. And I wonder daily, will I open again? If I do, will people be able to get out? Will they come? And I did reopen, and it was probably one of my best years ever because people were so relieved. It's the uncertainty that creates a high level of fear within us all. And I think what Elmo tapped into is what's going on globally. It's not just the United States. The World Health Organization has predicted that by the year 2030, which isn't that far away, that brain-related disease will be the world's largest disability. So it started. And
now, just as a follow-up, when we say brain-related disease, is that all types of mental health illness or a specific type?
No, it is. It's anxiety, it's depression, it's dementia, it's every brain disease that we suffer. And I think that, we're all getting older, which has got its beauty, and it's also got its negative. But we're living longer. We're experiencing life in a fuller extent, and we're more aware of it. I mean, I've been working in this field since 2005, and it used to be a really lonely conversation when you wanted to talk about brain health. I started off, I wanted to talk about mental health, and then in 2009. When I opened the Brain Performance Center under a behavioral health model, that changed from mental health to brain health. And in the last year, that's changed from brain health to brain capital. If you are not investing in yourself, in your mental health, your brain health, your brain's ability to get you through life, you're not taking yourself and helping yourself reach your fullest potential.
Wow. So we're going to talk more about how to invest in one's brain capital with Dr. Leigh Richardson. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. And University of Exeter had a study that they recently released where they found that on data for 1,000 people, over the age of 40 without a dementia diagnosis, that they benefited from playing a musical instrument. And I thought this was interesting because these are people that were showing some sort of cognitive issues similar to dementia that were part of this group. And it made me think, about what Dr. Richardson was talking about with respect to brain health and how, we can improve and strengthen our brain health. And it was saying here playing a musical instrument is somehow of benefit to preventing dementia. Dr. Richardson, I'm not sure if you've seen the study or not, but what are some of your thoughts on this, and mainly what can people do to improve their overall brain function?
Well, absolutely. Playing a musical instrument, learning a new language, anytime you're learning to do something new, you're creating neuroplasticity in the brain. And it's something we can all do at home. And, a couple of months ago, I decided I'm a right-handed person. I decided I'm going to start using my left hand to work my mouse. Let me tell you, Rich, that's harder than you think it might be.
Oh, as you said it, I was thinking that sounds like a disaster for me.
Well, it was, and it did get a little bit better, but it's, anytime you're learning something new, and, for me, that was hand-eye coordination. It was learning how to use that sensory integration, but learning how to even stop and think about it. That creates neuroplasticity in the brain. And I tell clients all the time, if you love to cook, have you ever cooked Thai food? Cook some Thai food. Do something that involves the brain and engages the brain and challenges the brain to participate and to show up. Because here's the story on the brain. It's not fully developed until the mid to the late 20s. So the 30s, Rich, the 30s are rocking. Then the 40s, maybe you start to plateau. The 50s, maybe you start to have some cognitive impairment. The 60s, maybe it's cognitive decline. What do you do about that? You stop.
I can tell you, I'm 45, and I don't feel as sharp as I did 10 years ago.
And that's normal because the brain has a philosophy. The brain puts off enough energy to light up a small light bulb. And the philosophy is use it or lose it. I mean, it takes every single bit of that energy to run everything, to run our brain, our body, just get done what we have to get done on a daily basis. So if you're not doing that anymore, the brain says, oop, redirect, send that over here, send that where we need it. And it does. So the more that you can open up those neural pathways that maybe have just, shut down because you haven't used them, the more regulated and stimulated you can keep that brain.
Now, on the other side of that spectrum, Dr. Leigh Richards, I wonder, this is something I deal with on a regular basis for working in late night talk radio, but I get it. I go hard with the stimulants. At 10 o'clock at night, I have a cup of coffee. At 11 o'clock at night, I have another cup of coffee. Yeah, I'm talking espresso, right? Spanish stuff. And then again, sometimes at midnight, I have a third cup. And keeps me wired. I get my job done. But when I'm done working, obviously, I'm still very awake. And it takes me till the next day sometimes to fall asleep. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, sometimes in the morning. Usually around 3. That's my magic number. But then I start my, slowing down routine. Melatonin, magnesium, ashwagandha root, that type of stuff. And I found that works for me. But I bring this up because some of my, I go out to lunch with my friends, and I hear that some of them are having trouble sleeping because, people, like you said, they're stressed out. They've got a lot going on, and their brain doesn't necessarily turn off when it's time for bed. What do you recommend to some of your clients that are saying, hey, look, I just can't sleep. I can't turn it off?
Well, I think the most important thing is get a sleep routine. Go to bed at the same time, Monday through Friday, and have your routine. Some of my clients will use sleepy time tea. Some of them,
that's really good.
For some people, it is very good. Some of them will turn off their, whether it's their computer or their television or their phone, they'll turn that off an hour before sleep time. And whether they listen to music, whether they tap into their spiritual side, whether they turn to mindfulness, gratefulness, they start to wind down. And if you make that a routine, if you tee that up in the brain, it's time to start calming down. I'm going to be going to sleep soon. So That's, the thing I really advise the strongest is get a sleep routine and follow it.
Follow it. With Dr. Leigh Richardson, and we're coming right back with her to learn a little bit more about her work in Texas and how you could be a part of it. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. We're on with Dr. Leigh Richardson. She's the founder of the Brain Performance Center in Dallas. And Dr. Richardson, we have a caller with a question for you. In the minutes that we have remaining, Sue in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, WXDE. Sue, go right ahead. You're on with Dr. Leigh Richardson.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Richardson. It's thrilling to hear you on Rich's show. So my question is this. Do online tools like Lumosity help with that? And also something like ginkgo biloba I heard is good for memory, and the impact of dehydration and proper hydration on your brain's workability.
Thank you.
Well, you touched on the most important point that I could have made. Thank you for bringing that up. And that is dehydration. The brain weighs 3 pounds, and it's 80% water. And it doesn't have the capacity to retain water like the kidneys do. When you're dehydrated, you're asking your brain to perform at a level, but it's like a car. You're not putting gas in the car. And if there's one thing, if there's one point that I can make tonight, it would be keep your brain hydrated. They say that you're supposed to drink half of your weight in fluid ounces every day. So, thank you for making that point for me, because that is key. When we talk about supplements, I have clients that, some supplements work for, some other supplements work for. There's not a one size fits all. I think it's figuring out what works for your body, what your body needs. And I encourage people, go back to your basics, go back to magnesium. None of our diets, really, we do not get the amount of magnesium that we need. So,
Dr. Richardson, I just want to remind you, we're going to run out of time soon. I want to make sure you let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with you and follow you and learn more about the Brain Performance Center.
Thank you so much. Well, you can find us on we're all over social media, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn, Leigh E. Richardson, and that good old-fashioned website, thebrainperformancecenter.com.
thebrainperformancecenter.com. Dr. Leigh Richardson, thank you for joining us again. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Godspeed to you. Folks, we're coming right back. Open Phone America, your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of our program. Hour number 3, we like to call it Open Phone America. It's a time-honored tradition. Started here 45 years ago with Larry King, who had taken over then for Long John Nebel, and of course, the late, great Jim Bohannon took over after Larry King did and continued the Open Phone America tradition. And we're going to do that tonight with everybody that calls in. So the number, if you want to join us, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you've never called the show, I'd love to hear from new people. You get moved right to the front of the line. If you disagree, you also get moved to the front of the line. And always looking to speak with everybody, whatever coast you're on, whether on the East Coast or the West Coast, if you're in Oregon or Phoenix or California or in the middle of the country or on the East Coast where I am, all good. Feel free to chime in. Of course, it's always good to hear from my buddy Gil, who calls in from the Philippines every now and again. Love hearing from him. And let's see, what do we got? We got a couple of headlines here that I want to go over. Of course, the big headline of the day is that Biden's announced that he's going to be striking back at Iran by way of Iraq and Syria. Now, I think this is, again, problematic in that why on earth would you announce that you're doing this, right? I mean, it's just, it makes no sense in the world. But that's what he did, and we had a clip of Lloyd Austin saying that, you know, that they're not going to take this line down. Then we had another clip of Lloyd Austin apologizing for being in the hospital. But we also have a CBS News clip discussing this story. Listen to this.
The plans call for a series of strikes that would take place over a number of days against targets in Iraq and Syria that would include the militias which have been carrying out these attacks against U.S. troop locations and the Iranian facilities and personnel who have been supporting the militias and really are the ones who make these attacks possible. Now, the timing of these strikes is going to depend on weather and intelligence. Weather, because pilots want to have eyes on their targets. Intelligence, because these strikes have been well telegraphed. At the beginning of the week, the president said publicly he has decided on what his response will be. And some of these Iranian operatives that the U.S. is looking for, they heard that as well. And so they've had time to either go to ground or get out of the country entirely.
And again, CBS is reporting that, again, the United States has assessed that the latest drone attack, which wounded more than 40 people, was made by Iran, and that these sources include Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard, and they were pulling their senior officers out of Syria. And that, you just heard that in that report. This is problematic, obviously. We're letting them know that we're going to be striking, so they're pulling their people out, and we're not going to kill the bad guys, you know? Even if we get some guys, it's going to be low-level guys, not the people that we should be getting. I mean, this is like amateur hour. I don't understand. You got Qatari and Egyptian mediators that are, you know, with Hamas, and they're now having a proposal to have like a ceasefire. Of course, you know, Israel's there, and the United States is trying to urge them to do that, and that was happening last week in Paris. And one Palestinian official that's close to these negotiations told Reuters that the discussions they're focusing on a first phase of 40 days. So I think that might be, at least this is what Biden is claiming, or the national security team is claiming, that they don't want to disrupt this potential ceasefire, this pause in Gaza, and this is why they've been slow to move, a 40-day pause, that they're slow to move on striking back against Iran. I could care less, honestly. I say go after these guys. You've got to be strong, because they didn't stop to think about that, right? It wasn't like the IRGC was thinking, oh yeah, you know, let's well, these guys, and you know, they're Hamas is negotiating with the Israelis, and maybe, you know, we should just kill some Americans, right? They didn't care. I don't understand Biden's position on this. I really, really don't. It's a feckless approach, and if you disagree with me, I don't know, do it somewhere else. I'm not really interested in debating anybody. Yes, I'm a war hawk. I love every single war. I've encouraged my kids to go to the military. That's it. I've said everything I can say. That's just my position on it. Anyway, let us continue. Now, if you want to weigh in on that, feel free. I'm disgusted with this decision. I also want to talk about what will happen with the border. You got people that are really, really upset with the border, and rightfully so, right? We saw some crazy stuff happening in the week over in New York City where cops were attacked. And I'm thinking, all right, so we got soldiers getting attacked and killed. You've got cops getting attacked in New York City. It seems like the bad guys seem to be scoring all the points, and the good guys are just sitting back, complaining, whining, like me right now, right? Wanting to do something and not having a representative in the White House that'll do it. And I think it's a very sad place to be, honestly. I miss the America where people didn't want to take action again, or they wanted to take action, but they didn't dare because they were afraid of retaliation. Now they know we can take action and they won't retaliate because there's people out there, like one of our callers earlier who called in, nice enough guy, but who think that it should be allowed that Americans get killed and that we don't go to war. And I'm not saying start a war. I'm just saying hit them back. They killed 3 of ours, go kill 6 of theirs, right? Let's just send a strong message. But lamentably, that is not happening. So I don't know. I don't know what the consensus is. Maybe if you guys want to call in and let me know what you think. Do you think it's okay that American troops get murdered and we do nothing? Should the United States just say, thank you, Iran? Thank you very much. Our bad. We didn't mean to be there. We shouldn't have been an imperialist, nosy America police of the world. We shouldn't have been where we were, and maybe we wouldn't have gotten killed. Maybe it's the apologist approach that we need to just say, hey, I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry, like Barack Obama did. Maybe that's what we need to do, right? Maybe it's the isolationists amongst us that are saying, how about we just shut down every military base? Let's just completely weaken our country. And let's just focus on what we do here at home. Let's have some bases in the 50 states. Let everybody do what they want overseas. Sure. Nobody really believes that, do they? And if you do, I don't know. Let's hear it. Anyway, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the border as well. We got a little bit more up our sleeves, a couple of crazy stories that are out there. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Congratulations on just an amazing show. I know you've worked so hard in the industry, and nobody deserves it more than you do. So I'm happy to see you really succeeding here. It's awesome.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And I want to play a clip for you. Let's see, where did it go? This is Keisha Eef, or Eefy, or Effie. I don't know. It's E-F-E-E-E. And she's a resident of Worcester, Massachusetts. She was on Fox News, and she sounds off on illegal aliens, saying, what's going on with Americans? Listen to this.
I have 4 children, and it's sad. I have 4 boys, and we really don't have nothing in the community that's free for us. Don't get me wrong, it's great that they want to help the immigrants, but what about the Americans that are already here? What about the people that are already here that don't have homes, that don't have jobs, that are sleeping on the street already? These people came from the airport here, probably on boats, probably on buses, and probably all for free. Now they're getting stipends, they're getting what else? I need money for me and my kids, and I was born here. Like, I know life is a struggle in itself, but this is not the answer to help them. Now it's going to destroy our community more and mess our children up more.
Isn't that something, right? So this is a black woman, just for the sake of, you couldn't see the video, who's complaining about, trying to make it in America. And she's, without saying it, she's talking about Bidenomics. She's talking about the economy that the Democrats have created for Americans that we all have to live in today. It's a sad truth. And I hate to politicize it that way. I really do, because my goal is not to politicize it, but really to create contrast for someone somewhere who thinks, I don't think ill of Democrats, right? I really don't. I think ill of progressives. I think their politics are destructive and they don't bring about any progress at all. But overall, I've grown up around Democrats my whole life in New York and New Jersey. Good luck finding Republicans around here. It's not a political thing per se. It's a common sense thing, right? It's a right and wrong thing. It's what makes the best situation for the Americans that live here kind of thing. And when you look at what's happening in our country at large, I feel that, people are beginning to say, hey, look, I don't like this. And I don't care if I'm a Democrat. I don't care if Biden's a Democrat. I don't care about anything. I care about what this woman said, taking care of her 3 boys, taking care of their family. And that's what I want to do too, right? I want to be able to go on really cool vacations every year. I want to go, overseas to Italy, to Rome, to France. I want to do all those things. But, the more expensive they become, the more scarce they become. And that's just a reality. People want to live a good life. But somehow the Democrats have normalized, and when I say the Democrats, I mean Biden and really his acolytes, that believe in the type of government he believes in. I think RFK Jr. is a Democrat, and I don't think he necessarily signs on to all of the reckless ideas that Biden has, whether it's the foreign policy ideas or mainly the spending ideas. I mean, the amount of spending. And what's difficult is you point out spending in the current administration, and undoubtedly someone's going to turn to you and go, but what about the Republicans? And you could say whatever you want. Yeah, they suck too. They're not in charge. They're not in the White House, right? That's really just the bottom line. So, yeah, they could all suck, and we could use these terms like the uniparty or the establishment. It doesn't matter, the label, to me. What matters is we have a majority in the Senate and in the White House that are doing what they feel like doing. I wish I could say we have a majority in the House of Representatives that are doing what they feel like doing, but they're not. Right? I think they feel like getting rid of Mayorkas. They feel like putting Biden in jail. They're not able to do those things. They have a majority, but they can barely get out of their own way to pull something off. Right? We're going after Alejandro Mayorkas. This guy, in my opinion, is the biggest paper tiger. All he does is lie. He doesn't take any action. The guy is a stuffed suit bureaucrat working for another stuffed suit bureaucrat named Joe Biden. So why not go after Joe Biden? Why not, why waste this time? But I guess there's a plan, right? The incrementalism. We got to go after Mayorkas and then say, oh, but it's Biden. What, you think there's a criminal case? You think he's going to flip on his boss and be like, oh, he told me to do it. He told me. No, he's not going to cry and rat out Joe Biden. Joel Barboso Biden is Joel Barboso Biden. He's the bad guy. The fish rots from the head. And that's what we got to focus on. And kudos to this woman, Miss Keisha Effie, for saying what she said, and for so many Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, all sorts of minorities that are coming away from the Democrat Party to say, you know what, I'm not supporting this. I'll be a Democrat for life, many of them will say, but they're not going to support Joe Biden. Because, again, and that's my point, this is really at large an issue of Joe Biden and the reckless spending that nobody else was saying we needed an American Rescue Plan. Nobody else was saying we needed to build back better, and that other third plan where there were so many different plans where they cost the American taxpayer so much money. Now, again, all of it wasn't right now. There was more. There was spending at the end of the Trump administration during COVID, which, again, I feel like that was a situation. If I had a critique, I would say I wish Trump would have been a little bit stronger there. But I understand it was a very precarious political position where people's lives were at stake, and everybody was saying, you can't go outside. 15 days flat in the curb, put on a mask, you're killing grandma. What was Trump supposed to do if, not wearing a mask was killing people's grandmother, right? Really? What did we expect him to do? They were gonna try and crucify this guy. So he played ball. He followed the science. They said follow the science. He had Fauci there. I think that might have been the smartest thing he did. Some people like DeSantis will say that was his error. And again, some could look at it that way. I would say when you're dealing with the deep state and you're outnumbered, why not bring the biggest snake and put him next to you and say, well, what do you think we should do, Dr. Fauci? Because ultimately, that gives Trump a pass. They were the ones insisting. Some people will say, well, but you weren't leading. You weren't being strong. Imagine if Trump would have said, Fauci, you're fired. Just imagine, right? And then Fauci, his career dies like a dog. Just imagine that. They would say, oh, he's using his political power, blah, 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 everything they said about James Comey. It would be another scandal in the making. They would have blamed the deaths of every last person in COVID on Trump. So he plays ball in the name of saving lives. And then he gets criticized for that too. That's why I don't play that blame game. Because I realize it's a zero-sum game. But ultimately, this thing costs us a ton of money. Not just, the stimulus checks and what happened with Trump, but mainly everything afterwards. And here we are in inflation. And here we are with, I thought by now for sure I'd have a nice little one-bedroom or studio condo in a relatively, modest building in South Beach, Florida, and Miami. And guess what? I'm not. I'm not there. Why? Because stuff's like doubled in price. And now interest rates that were 2%, 3%, 4% are now like 8 or 9. 7.5, I think was the best one I'd seen, or 7.9, which is 8. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. People aren't going to make the investments they were once making. And with less money floating around, less travel, less airfare, less everything. What are we going to do? Anyway, I want to give you some listener feedback when we come back. I also want to share some more audio with you. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. Give us a call. Your calls and more coming up. I see we got calls coming in now. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
I'm so glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
We're promoting her posthumously to sergeant.
Oh, wow. That is the best news I've heard today. Thank you so much. You don't know how much that means to us.
Oh, well, I tell you what, it means a lot to me. My son spent a year in Iraq until I lost him, and 1% of all these kids are the ones that we're going to take care of 99% of us.
Of a phone call from President Biden. I'm trying to find out from our control room where this audio's come from, but it is between Oneida and Sean Sanders, they're the parents of their daughter, Kennedy Sanders, who was killed in one of the drone attacks. She was only 24 years old, serving her country overseas. And President Biden graciously told the family that she would be promoted to sergeant posthumously, which is great. I mean, I think the least that we could do for the sacrifice that she gave us, and this excerpt was provided by the family. And I'm glad that happened. I think everybody deserves that, especially in a high-profile situation like this one where there's so much on the line, right? I mean, we're on the brink of a very, very precarious situation. This is not like these 3 soldiers accidentally died with friendly fire, died in a training exercise. No, these people died in an attack sponsored by Iran, by terrorists. And that's not cool. And I think the parents were incredibly gracious. And you could hear the how emotional they were. And it's moving. It's very moving, you know, to realize that this is real life. And the fact that Biden talks with these people and drags his feet and then announces what the retaliation would be. You know, if I were these parents, honestly, I do believe I would have asked him and say, you know, Mr. President, you've announced that you're going to retaliate. Did they announce that they were going to kill my daughter? Did they announce that they were going to kill her 2 colleagues? Did they make any announcement on us? Did they use the element of surprise? Did they spare their lives? No, they didn't. Why are you? Why are you allowing these IRGC captains, generals, commanders, why are you sparing their lives? Why are you making this announcement? Why are you treating them better than they treated my daughter, who's paid the ultimate sacrifice? And I'd love to know his response. And these parents deserve to know that. Anyway, I want to go to your calls. Let's see what we got here. Let's go to Rob. Rob is giving us a call from Mitchell, South Dakota, listening on KORN. Rob, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I got a practical example real quick of response to what I would do tonight if I was Joe Biden, the president of America. Mm-hmm. About 9 years old, I was taking care of a hornet problem and put a little bundle together and a short waterproof fuse on it and tossed that in the hole, and I didn't get them all, and lacking wings, they swarmed me. So, but back to the policy, my opinion is I would call King Salman tonight. He's the supreme leader of both ideologies, the Sunni and the Shia. And I would tell him, man, the game is over, and I wouldn't attack anybody tonight. I would just shut down the policy. The issue is, with this continuous resolution, they have these long-term military plans and strategies, and there's not independent thinking allowed. So there's kind of a bipolar thing going on. So what do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, Saudi Arabia is here. They're there. Right now, I don't see Saudi Arabia as the problem. I've always seen them as the beneficiary, right? They don't seem to want conflict. They get involved when they need to get involved, when it's important for them or necessary, or they feel it's expedient for them. But ultimately, I think we have a couple of main problems in life, right? I think China is a main problem for us. I think that Iran is a main problem for us. I think Russia is occasionally a problem for us. And these are the people that we need to focus our attention on. And instead of engaging in these proxy wars that drag out, I think we need to be more decisive and clearer in our policies toward them so that they understand. I mean, I remember a time in life where, the word on the street was the United States didn't negotiate with terrorists. And I think that's kind of morphed into the United States allows itself to be abused by terrorists. Who cares about negotiating? They do what they want with impunity. They know that they're going to get a pass from Joe Biden. And that's a very sad state of affairs for me. Now, I get what you're saying, that you would take a different approach. And it's something that I think we should discuss, think about, entertain, sure. But ultimately, I think that you must You can't just play an economic chess game here. You can't just play a political chess game. They have to see strength. They used firepower and they took lives. They have to receive firepower and they have to lose lives. It's as simple as that, in my opinion. Rob, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Let us continue. Let's go to Brad calling from Bowling Green, Kentucky, WKCT. Brad, what's going on?
Hey, Rich. I believe that the reason that Biden doesn't do anything is there's too many people that have tapes and pictures and all kinds of stuff on him on blackmail, and that they say, well, you just hold it right there, Bubba. We're going to release it all, and he likes his job so much, or Jill does, that they want to hang in there. That's the only thing I can say. Like that, the retreat from Afghanistan. That was crazy. Drop your weapons and run is what they did.
Yeah, Brad, I don't put it past anybody. The where I struggle with any of this, and I agree, like, why on earth would Biden have agreed to anything like that? I don't know if it's blackmail as much as, again, if I put my tinfoil hat on and I start, figuring this out, I would suspect that he made money on the deal somehow. He was like, look, we got $81 billion worth of equipment here. What do you give me for it? And, all right, buy some paintings from Hunter, whatever deal he came up with. And I don't know the extent of that. But to me, I think that's more Joe Biden's speed. In regards to blackmail, here's what I think. And I used to think there's some sort of leverage. I don't know if there is anymore. And the reason I don't is because everything's been said. He's literally under a political investigation in the House for impeachment. He's under a political investigation in the House for corruption, for his son's dealings, for his dealings, for talking with people. They have witnesses. It's this big, long, convoluted thing, the Hunter Biden laptop, the cover-up, all of this, so much information there. Then again, some will say, oh, that's nothing, you've got nothing. And others will say, but there's so much to tarnish what's already going on. And I would think, all of that being said and done, we still have the border, right? And he doesn't care, right? Why would I need to blackmail somebody who's so blatant in what they do? He doesn't care. So I think, we've got naked pictures of Hunter Biden, sex tapes of Hunter Biden. We know that Hunter Biden's on drugs. Hunter Biden's under federal indictment and being investigated, and for gun charges and tax evasion and being a foreign agent registration, right? So I'm thinking, what possibly could they say that would shock anyone? Because, Joe Biden's on the take. We have half of Congress already saying that. So I think it's really just cash. I think it's just cash deals that he's cutting, where he's like, yeah, we'll pull out. We'll leave everything for it. I got a nice little gift for you. And there you go. Just make sure you take care of me on the back end. I think, the thing, man. And I really think that's how he does it. Because he's just a old school machine politician that functions within this type of corruption. Doesn't see government as an instrumentality of the people, for the people, by the people. He sees it as a means to enrich himself and to amass a little bit of power and to enrich his family. And that's really the way I see it. One of us is right, I'm sure, and all of us are paying the price because of Joe Biden. Brad, thanks for the call. Folks, we're coming right back. The rest of your calls and more, don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. No hair, no care, and live on the air, it's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So James O'Keefe has struck again, this time setting up somebody from the White House, a White House staffer named Charlie Krager, and he gets him to say on undercover video that Biden's not quite there mentally, and you'll never guess who they don't like within the administration. Listen to this.
I agree with everything Biden is doing. It's just his cognitive ability. Like, I have a grandfather who's 91, and Joe Biden is worse than my grandfather who has dementia.
Yeah.
You know, he's sort of walking like this, and he's sort of like, you know, and I think that voters are going to look at that, and it's going to hurt us. I think that independents are going to look at that, and they're going to be like, I can't deal with that. But with him, I know. He's got dementia.
Well, I don't think he has that clinically yet.
No,
but he's definitely slowing down.
My question is, are the people like your colleagues or the White House or whatever, do they get it? Do they know that? You know?
I think that they probably do, but no one in modern history has ever said, like, we're not going to renominate the president for a second term. Like, that just hasn't happened.
Do they know that he has those issues?
I think so.
But they're not willing to say it.
Shows it. And
they're not willing to say it publicly.
And same thing with Kamala Harris. Is she's not popular, but you can't remove the black lady to be vice president from the damn presidential ticket. Like, what kind of message are you going to send to, like, African American voters?
You can't remove the effing black lady from the White House and take her off the ticket. Wow. White House staffer Charlie Krager, that didn't go over too well. That was, again, undercover footage of James O'Keefe getting Charlie Krager, a White House staffer, to be a fly on the wall, right? That's funny stuff. I want to get your reaction to that. Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Let's go to Jim, calling from Las Cruces, New Mexico, listening on KOBE. Jim, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Methinks the White House DEI security hires are not up to snuff. At least that's my belief. For even I, a New Mexican hermit that I be, could recognize the man sitting before me was James O'Keefe.
That's clever. You got a little poem there on my buddy James O'Keefe, O'Kizzle, my nizzle, as I like to call him. Now, what do you think? Do you think, and I agree with you, I think they're not doing a great job if they're not noticing that James O'Keefe is the guy. But what are your thoughts on what this guy had to say? That, maybe he's not clinically diagnosed just yet, but for sure he's slowing down. And then the things he says, you can't remove the effing black lady from the White House and take her off the ticket. Well, what do you think of that?
I hope he enjoyed his very short career.
Right. Yeah, and I'm looking for an update here. I don't see one yet. Maybe the guys in the studio have an update. But I'm wondering if this guy still has a job. Has the White House made any comment? I know this happened a day or two ago, and I haven't heard anything just yet. So I'm wondering if they care about what their buddy, what's his name, Charlie Krager, cybersecurity policy analyst for foreign affairs in the executive office of the president. Wonder what he had to say. And again, James O'Keefe, what costume is he wearing? A pair of glasses. That's it. That's all he's wearing is a pair of glasses. He looks exactly like James O'Keefe. Not that James O'Keefe's the most famous guy ever, but, I mean, when somebody's facing you that looks like James O'Keefe wearing glasses, and he's saying things like, my thing is that, everybody in the White House has to know that Biden's, really slowing down. He's got dementia. And this guy, yeah. I don't know. I think it's weak. It's a very, very weak situation there. Not the video. I think O'Keefe did a great job here. I think the bigger issue is that this guy was just weak, and he got O'Keefed from the O'Keefe Media Group. Jim in Las Cruces, what do you think they're going to make any improvements to their current background check after this?
Well, if I was James O'Keefe, I'd be worried right now because he might get another raid.
Yeah. One thing I know about O'Keefe is that he doesn't worry a ton. He's kind of like waiting for it, and he's like, hey, the more the merrier. He believes in this stuff. Anyway, Jim, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Big shout out to everybody listening on KOBE in Las Cruces, New Mexico. The rest of your calls and more coming up. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Before we wrap up, I want to get some of your thoughts. Let's go to New York, Jamestown, New York, WJTN. Let's get some thoughts from Derek on the undercover video. Go right ahead, Derek.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Black History Month. Are you in the mood for a little humor? I have a message from Confucius. Confucius said, men who go on hill with woman are not leveled.
That actually made me laugh. That was funny. Now, Derek, what are your thoughts on this undercover video?
Yes, the undercover video just basically captures the attitude of J6, because the whole thing with Donald, when he said they took the election from him, however, he knows how the game is played, but Joe did it with that.
Oh, I don't think we'd say that on the radio. But the guy, I don't know that that there's a correlation here. I think the guy says you can't take the black woman from the White House and take her off the ticket. And that's a guy that works for Biden. I don't see the correlation there, but I agree with what you're saying, that it's in poor taste and it shouldn't be said and it shouldn't be looked at that way. But I think what's important here is that we realize these are Biden's people, and that's what they think of her, and that's what they think of him. That he's not mentally there, that they don't like her, and they think of her as that black woman in the White House that's on the ticket. And that's disheartening to hear that that's coming from Democrats that work for Biden as opposed to coming from Republicans. But, Derek, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Let's see. Frank in Evergreen, Montana, we're looking at Joe Biden. His own staff thinks that he is maybe not clinically diagnosed with dementia, but definitely slowing down. What do you think about older men and growth spurts?
Well, I think it may be his feet. Like my feet, they thought I had dementia. I was stumbling, but my feet have grown from 10.5 D, a wide foot, to a 15-inch with a high arch, and it's a medium. And I've grown 2 more inches, and my chest size has gone from 42 up to 54.
So how old were you during this growth spurt?
72.
Wow. Well, God bless you, Frank. Sounds like you're going to be around for a long time. Thanks for the call, my brother. Shout out to KOFI. Hasta la próxima, America. I am Rich Valdez. Happy to be with you guys. Can't wait to chat with you again tomorrow. Lenny in Atlanta, I'm sorry I couldn't get to you, but call in again tomorrow. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.